Welcome to Dolphin Dive Daily, your go-to spot for everything Miami Dolphins. If you bleed aqua and orange, hit that subscribe button and join the pod. The Miami Dolphins offseason just got a lot more interesting and perhaps a bit riskier with the official unveiling of Darren Waller's contract details. After moving on from Jonnu Smith in a trade with the Pittsburgh Steelers, Miami's front office wasted no time in addressing the void at tight end by bringing in the former New York Giants star, who had just come out of a short-lived retirement. Now that the dust has settled, we're getting a much clearer picture of just how much the Dolphins are willing to gamble on Waller. And yes, make no mistake, this is a gamble. The term's a one-year deal worth up to $5 million, but only $2 million is in base salary. That means a whopping 60% of the contract's value will depend entirely on Waller's performance on the field. It's a fascinating setup, one that both limits Miami's risk and throws down a massive challenge to Waller himself. What makes this signing even more intriguing is how financially strategic the Dolphins were in crafting it. According to reports, the $2 million base salary barely disrupts the current salary cap situation, essentially displacing a player making around $1 million from Miami's top 51 contracts. That means the net hit on their cap is only about $1 million at least until final roster cuts are made after preseason. That's a smart way to bet on upside without mortgaging the team's flexibility. Miami is hedging its bets here. If Waller underperforms or fails to make the roster entirely, the team's financial exposure remains minimal. But if he finds his rhythm and becomes the dynamic pass-catching threat he was with the Raiders before injuries and inconsistency slowed him down, then the Dolphins have made a masterstroke of a signing for pennies on the dollar. It's important to consider the emotional and narrative weight behind this move. Darren Waller wasn't just retired. He was teetering on the edge of stepping away from football permanently. Health issues, both physical and mental, have impacted his ability to stay on the field. So the Dolphins aren't just betting on a guy who didn't play last year, they're banking on a full resurrection of a career that many thought might be over. That adds layers of uncertainty to what already feels like a calculated but bold decision. Waller has everything to prove. He's stepping into a new offensive system, rejoining the league after time away, and trying to find his place in a roster that already has stars like TYREEK Hill and WADDLE commanding attention. For Miami, the upside is tantalizing, but the risk can't be ignored either. The fact that more than half of Waller's deal is tied to performance incentives tells you everything you need to know about Miami's mindset. They want the reward without the commitment. And from a team-building standpoint, that's a savvy move. Waller's $3 million in potential bonuses are categorized as not likely to be earned, a term that has specific meaning in NFL contract lingo. It means that the milestones he must hit to unlock that money are based on benchmarks he didn't meet in the previous season, because, well, he didn't play. That suggests the bar is set reasonably high: games played, receptions, yardage, touchdowns, maybe even Pro Bowl honors. Whatever the exact thresholds are, one thing is certain. Waller has to be not just good, but great to see the full value of that contract. This structure also gives the Dolphins tremendous leverage. If Waller struggles in training camp or shows signs of rust, the team can walk away with minimal financial loss. There's no major guaranteed money anchoring them down. On the flip side, if he impresses early and builds chemistry with Tua Tagovailoa and the offensive unit, he could quickly become a key part of Miami's attack. And imagine what that might look like. Waller working the seams while Hill and Waddle stretch defenses vertically. If that version of Waller shows up, the Dolphins might have pulled off the steal of the offseason. But it's a big if. And that's the duality of this signing. Low cost, high volatility, massive potential upside. Let's also not ignore the timing of this move. Waller was acquired via a day 3 pick swap, a low-cost maneuver that signals how desperate the Giants were to move on and how little competition there may have been for his services. That tells us something about how the rest of the league views Waller's current value. Yet Miami chose to take the leap. They've done this kind of thing before, betting on upside players with uncertain trajectories. Sometimes it's worked, sometimes not. But they clearly believe in their system, their culture, and their ability to extract production from players others have given up on. Whether that optimism is warranted will depend entirely on Waller's ability to put his past behind him and embrace the opportunity in front of him. Another angle worth noting is the messaging this sends inside the Dolphins' locker room. Jonnu Smith, a dependable, if unspectacular contributor, was shipped out. In comes a high-risk, high-reward player with more accolades, but also more question marks. That kind of roster shakeup can energize a team or destabilize it. It places a lot of pressure on Waller to not only perform, but also to fit in quickly. Chemistry, leadership, trust. Those things matter especially in a high-stakes AFC East race that could come down to a game or two. Mike McDaniel's coaching acumen will be tested here. Can he design a role that gets the most out of Waller while protecting him from overuse? Can he integrate a comeback story into a winnow machine? Waller at his peak was an absolute nightmare for defenses, an athletic mismatch with size, speed, and hands. But that version of him hasn't been seen consistently in a while. Since 2021, injuries have limited his availability, and even when he's played, his explosiveness hasn't quite been the same. That's why the Dolphins structured the deal the way they did. It's all about protection, for the team, not necessarily for the player. But make no mistake, if Waller even approaches his former level, this contract will be an absolute bargain. Miami doesn't need him to be Travis Kelce. They just need him to be reliable, dangerous enough to stretch defenses, and productive enough to make teams think twice about doubling Hill or Waddle. If he does that, the incentives will take care of themselves. From Waller's perspective, this is a perfect situation to relaunch his career. The pressure is real, but so is the opportunity. He's no longer expected to carry an offense, just complement it. And in that kind of environment, with speed around him and a creative coach drawing up plays, he could flourish. The path to success is there. It's just a matter of health, consistency, and commitment. Miami has set the bar high without locking itself into a financial trap. If Waller wants to play in 2026 and beyond, this is his showcase. The Dolphins gave him the stage. Now it's up to him to deliver something worthy of the spotlight. Ultimately, this contract tells you everything you need to know about how NFL teams manage risk and reward. It's a masterclass in cap navigation, performance-based planning, and roster construction. Darren Waller may not be the same player he was a few years ago, but the Dolphins don't need him to be. They just need him to be something better than what they had and to stay on the field long enough to matter. If he does, Miami might look back at this as a brilliant turning point in their season. If he doesn't, well, they've protected themselves from the fallout. It's a deal that puts the burden squarely on the player. And that's exactly the kind of move that separates the bold from the cautious in today's NFL. Still with us? Then show some love. Hit that like button and let us know in the comments what's your take on the Fins this week. Something strange is brewing in Miami, and it's not just the tropical storm warnings. Rumors have been swirling since last weekend about a heated exchange between Dolphins wide receivers Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. And if what insiders are whispering is even half true, the once electric duo might be heading toward an ugly split. Eyewitnesses say the argument didn't happen in the shadows or behind closed doors. It exploded right in front of teammates and coaches during a training session. Voices raised, fingers pointed, and according to some, helmets nearly thrown. This wasn't a typical heat of the moment dispute, sources insist. This was personal, something that's been building beneath the surface. The chemistry that once made Miami's offense one of the most dangerous in the league may now be cracking, and fast. Dolphins fans who dreamed of a Super Bowl run might want to brace themselves for some serious turbulence. Let's rewind a bit. Waddle and Hill on paper are a match made in football heaven. Both are lightning fast, both can take a slant 80 yards to the house, and both were supposed to give Miami the most feared receiving core in the league. But it seems that two alphas might be one too many. Sources close to the team hint that the friction started brewing as early as OTAs. Subtle things, sideline eye rolls, long stares after broken plays, and icy post-practice interactions. Hill, always the vocal leader, may have rubbed Waddle the wrong way with his intense, sometimes flamboyant style. And Waddle, younger, but just as competitive, reportedly started pushing back. What began as competitiveness may have crossed into something deeper, resentment. Insiders say the coaching staff has noticed, and while they've tried to keep it contained, the recent blow-up may be proof that it's now too late to stop the fire. The moment in question reportedly took place after a failed red zone drill. Waddle was visibly frustrated, having been missed on a quick-out route. Hill, who had just scored on the previous rep, allegedly chirped something that didn't sit well with his teammate. That's when Waddle fired back. Witnesses say he shouted something about always making it about yourself, and Hill didn't take kindly to it. What followed was a full-blown verbal war with teammates frozen and coaches stunned. No punches were thrown yet, but the tension was thick enough to slice with a cleat. The entire session was briefly halted. The coaching staff pulled both players aside for what appeared to be a very intense conversation. But body language doesn't lie. Neither player looked satisfied. They went through the motions for the rest of practice, but the air it was toxic. And the rest of the locker room felt it. Loudly. This kind of tension isn't just bad for optics. It's dangerous for a team hoping to make a serious playoff push. Last season, Hill and Waddle combined for over 2,800 yards and were a nightmare for secondaries. But football is as much about unity as it is about talent. And right now, unity is in short supply in Miami. Teammates are reportedly picking sides. Quietly, of course, but picking nonetheless. Some younger players see Waddle as the homegrown future, the one who's been there since day one. Others view Hill as the proven leader with the championship pedigree. This divide isn't loud yet, but insiders say it's there simmering. And if the coaching staff doesn't get ahead of it soon, it could explode again. And next time it might not end with just words. We've seen superstar feuds derail promising teams before. Could the Dolphins be the next victim of internal chaos? Coach Mike McDaniel is no stranger to managing personalities, but this might be his toughest test yet. Known for his player-friendly style and creative offensive mind, McDaniel is now walking a tightrope. Publicly, the Dolphins have downplayed the altercation. No official statement. No media access to the players involved. But make no mistake, behind the scenes this is a 5-alarm fire. Sources say closed-door meetings were held immediately after practice. Veteran leaders like Tua Tagovailoa and Terron Armstead were reportedly brought in to help smooth things over. But even their calming presence might not be enough. Hill is a strong personality. Waddle, though quieter, has pride and rising star power. This isn't just a veteran teaching a young guy the ropes. This is ego versus ego, and it's unfolding at one of the worst possible times, during a critical stretch of training camp, when cohesion is everything. It's also worth noting that contract talks may be adding fuel to the fire. Waddle is nearing the end of his rookie deal and is expected to command serious money soon. Hill, meanwhile, is already one of the highest-paid receivers in the league. Some insiders suggest Waddle may feel overshadowed or underappreciated, especially considering his production. Think about it, two players both dominant, but only one getting the national spotlight and the payday. That kind of dynamic can breed silent competition. And in this case, it may no longer be silent. If Waddle believes he's not being featured enough, or if he suspects Hill is intentionally taking the shine, the result could be what we're now seeing: open conflict. And in today's NFL, where social media and personal brands carry weight, this sort of rift doesn't just stay in the locker room. It leaks, spreads, and eventually erupts. Fans, of course, are starting to notice. Reddit threads are lighting up. Dolphins Twitter is split. Some fans are defending Hill, saying he brings the fire and drive that Miami needs. Others are backing Waddle, pointing to his consistency and loyalty to the franchise. But the reality is this drama could derail what was shaping up to be a very promising season. The AFC East is no joke. With Buffalo still a powerhouse and the Jets stacked on defense, the Dolphins don't have room for self-inflicted wounds. Chemistry matters, especially in tight games. And if your top two receivers are at each other's throats, or worse, not speaking at all, timing, trust, and rhythm all suffer. This isn't Madden. You can't just throw talent on a field and expect magic. There needs to be unity. And right now, that unity is cracking under the weight of ego and expectation. And then there's Tua. The quarterback is often the glue that holds a team together, but he's in a tough spot. Reports suggest he's trying to stay neutral, but how long can that last? If he throws more to Hill, Waddle's camp might feel slighted. If he favors Waddle, Hill might start chirping. This delicate balance could weigh heavily on Tua, who's already under immense pressure to prove he can stay healthy and lead Miami deep into the playoffs. The last thing he needs is to play referee between his top two weapons. The coaching staff may ask him to step in more vocally, but that's not exactly his style. And yet, if he doesn't, the locker room may continue to fracture. It's a lose-lose situation unless something changes soon, whether that means a team intervention, a public apology, or in the worst-case scenario, a trade no one saw coming. Yes, you heard that right. Some insiders are whispering about the unthinkable. Could the Dolphins consider moving one of their star receivers? It's far from confirmed, but in the NFL, anything is possible. If tensions continue to rise and performance suffers, tough decisions might be made. Waddle, being younger and still on a cheaper deal, would draw major trade interest. Hill, despite his salary, is still playing at an elite level and could help a contender. Would Miami pull the trigger? Probably not yet. But if the relationship is deemed unfixable, and if it's impacting the locker room, don't be shocked if the front office starts exploring options. In a league driven by results and chemistry, no player is untouchable, especially not when internal drama threatens to sink an entire season. For now, it's just a rumor. But we've all seen how quickly rumors in the NFL can turn into reality. So where does that leave us? Right in the middle of uncertainty. What began as a heated exchange has blossomed into a full-blown concern, and possibly a sign of a deeper rift in Miami's locker room. The Dolphins have the talent to make a run, but talent alone won't carry them. They need cohesion. They need trust. And right now, those seem to be in short supply. Will cooler heads prevail? Can WADDLE and Hill bury the hatchet and find common ground before Week 1? Or are we witnessing the early stages of a high-profile fallout that could alter the Dolphins' entire season trajectory? Only time will tell. But one thing's for sure, all eyes are now on Miami, and the next few weeks will be critical. The Dolphins may still have the speed, but without unity, they risk going nowhere fast. Stay tuned. This story's far from over. That's a wrap for today's dive. If you're loving the content, share it with a fellow Dolphins fan, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a splash. Fins up.